I want now to talk about the day, my first day in the GSU. I'd talked about my first day in Kiganjo. That was on November 27th. I also wanted to talk about my experience in Kiganjo. Like this week, this is the Jamhuri Day week. I want to talk about Jamhuri Day in a few days' time. But when I talked about various places in Magadi GSU camp, uh, a lot of people have asked me to talk about the first day I joined GSU. First day I joined GSU, I was seconded to GSU, can be divided into two. It can be divided into two. One, it can be both the day we went to GSU headquarters, and the same day again, we went to GSU Training School in Embakasi. Another day one, I could say the day we went to Magadi field training camp. There is a space of a few days between the day we went to both Ruaraka and Embakasi to the day we went to Magadi. The reason being that when we arrived in Embakasi, there were the GSU people whom we were employed with on the same day, but went straight to GSU. Half of them had completed fieldcraft and half had not completed fieldcraft. So we stayed with the half that had completed so that the other half completes. Then we exchange, we go to Magadi, the semi-desert, and all the GSU colleagues now go to Embakasi for the final graduation. There were two graduations. There was the fieldcraft graduation, and then there was the ceremonial graduation. The ceremonial graduation nowadays is presided over by the head of state. So we left Kiganjo, and around somewhere around 10, if I remember well, around 10 a.m. we were at GSU headquarters in Ruaraka. While we were at the GSU headquarters in Ruaraka, at the gate, somebody opened the gate and he asked the sergeant who was escorting us, afande, hawa ni wale makurutu walikuwa jana kwa TV. I got annoyed because according to me, the the taking of oath and saying Mwenyezi Mungu nisaidie was enough to make me not be a recruit anymore. But being referred to as a recruit really annoyed me. What I did not know is that in police, even after reporting to the police station, you'll still be referred to as a recruit for up to 2 years. But this time, when the sergeant said that we are recruits who were there yesterday, we were not harassed the way we were harassed on the first day we went to Kiganjo. The fellow at the gate just said, "Ai, hii watu mlitembeaje? Kwani were you not taught how to march? Your drill was very poor." It was as if it was not your last day in Kiganjo. It was as if it was your first day in Kiganjo. This also annoyed me, but you see, I'm sure it also annoyed my colleagues on the lorry. The sergeant went. There were about 4 lorries. we were carried according to our provinces. Those who are going to Coast Province boarded a lorry from Coast Province. Those from Rift Valley, those from Eastern, something like that. Now, what happened was, technically, we were Rift Valley, like me. I was a Rift Valley person who was being seconded to GSU. My friend Joel Salia Lugalia, Joel Salia Lugalia was a person from from Coast, now being taken to GSU for orientation course, paramilitary orientation course. So from there we stayed in the lorries, and the paperwork was done. You see, there were envelopes. An NCO, a sergeant from Rift Valley, went to the office, said, I have the following recruits, blah, 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 blah. They belong to Rift Valley. Now, we were no longer Kiganjo people, although our salary was being paid by Kiganjo, but we were no longer Kiganjo people. We were, like me, I was a Rift Valley person. Joel Salia Lugalia was a Coast people. So the sergeant from Mombasa went and gave out a list of people who are for the Coast, and the sergeant for Rift Valley did that for Rift Valley. And after 30 or so minutes they came, they boarded, because we never alighted from the lorries. They boarded the lorries, and we took the outer ring road to GSU Training School in Embakasi. We alighted well. We were received well. We were received like what do you call freshmen being received in the university or college. We were received well. We were shown where to sleep. The dormitories in Kiganjo were called barracks, but dormitories in GSU Training School were called dormitories. We did not have double-decker beds. We had a single-deck beds, and we were well received. That was around lunchtime. We went for meals. I can say here that at least in 1983, the meals that recruits were taking in Kiganjo and the meals that the recruits were taking in Embakasi was very different. The meals in Embakasi were of the highest standard, almost below the officers' mess. We had plenty of money. We used to be paid the basic salary of a constable, 480. But after completing the 6 months, my salary was to be 885. So it means that I used to get half the salary. So getting half times 5, that is 4.5, plus I had a salary for 5.5 months. Being the treasurer in Kiganjo, I had conned some money. So I had something like a loan. And in Embakasi GSU, even after you could even decide not to eat, and then you go and buy food in APTC, or you could buy food in a canteen there. So stay there was good. We could wake up during those few days. We could wake up at 7. Waking up at 7 is waking up during. It's like waking up during noon time. Because in Kiganjo, we used to wake up at 3. And what you do between 3 and 8, those 5 hours, was more than what you did between 8 and midnight when you went to sleep. What am I saying? In Kiganjo, we used to sleep for 3 hours. Here we were sleeping somewhere at 7 p.m. and waking 12 hours. Now it was 4 times what we were sleeping in Kiganjo. But those days as we were awaiting to go to Magadi was very hectic. We arrived on Saturday noon. Sunday we was relaxed. Monday it was orientation, and we were told to go to the stores to be given uniform. I can tell you that was one of my happiest days in the world. I asked our class teacher, can I call it class teacher, was called Sergeant Gila. Sergeant Gila, uh, while we were training, he became an inspector. By the time we left Magadi, he was Inspector Gila. But when, yeah, he used, I've just remembered, he used to tell us, I'm Gila and I kill more than a Gila. So Sergeant Gila told us that we were to go to store and be given Django uniform. And I asked him, sir, are we going to be given the red berets? He said, I said, you're going to be given GSU uniform. I was very happy. I was very happy to don a red beret. Is it red beret or is it maroon? But anyway, they call it red, but I think it is maroon in color. We went to the stores. We were given the blue beret. I was disappointed, but still took it. It was better than a cap. So from there, we were told that it is an offense to be found with the police khaki uniform. We were to put on the GSU uniform, but the beret was blue. So we were putting on stock theft uniform. From day one, something that I noticed from day one was that I just said that we were taken there. People who are going to Rift Valley, people who are going to Coast Province, people who are going to Eastern, and the people who are going to stock theft unit. At that time, it was called STU. At that time, it was called stock theft unit. It was later renamed by Moi anti-stock theft unit. So one thing I noticed from the word go from that Monday, 30th of May, 1983, the GSU people gave a lot of priority. It was favorism. It was like growing up with a stepmother who has a child. She treats her child better than you. So I noticed from that day that they treated, they gave priority to people from stock theft unit. Of course, stock theft unit was a part of the GSU, and then it became a formation of itself in the Kenya Police Force. But with the new constitution, stock theft, anti-stock theft unit is placed under the Administration Police Service. So I found that they were treating the stock theft unit people better than us. There were times when an instructor wanted to punish you for something, or he was not happy with everything, and he would ask you, wewe ni mtu wa wapi? Initially we could say mimi ni wa Rift Valley or whatever, but if you said you are stock theft, yeah, wewe ni mmoja wetu. That is what they were saying, wewe ni mmoja wetu. Kofia peke yake ndio tofauti. That is what they used to say. That is something I noticed from the first day. But then, as I said, the first day we went there, the GSU people had not yet come from Magadi. We were alone. Because I remember a few days later, I think it was the first Friday, is when half of the GSU came from Magadi and the other half stayed there. Now, during those days while we were awaiting going to Magadi, every morning, we were given slashers. The slashers here were better than those of Kiganjo because they were new and they, walikuwa wamenoa hiyo nini, walikuwa wamenoa hiyo, so it was good. But we used to wake up in the morning, go and start slashing grass until 10 a.m. We would go and take tea with a lot of milk. If you compare with the Kiganjo milk, it had a lot of milk, but and you know Kiganjo, there was no tea for 10 a.m. So at 10 a.m. we would go to take tea. Of course, we would pass through a kiosk and buy cakes or something for the tea. After the tea break, we went back cutting grass until lunch. And from lunch, afternoon, we cut grass until... I was lucky that in the dormitory that was containing people from Rift Valley, I was in the number that is placed on the chest, first number. I was the number one. So I was immediately made a prefect. A prefect in military term, they call it a squad leader. So I was the Rift Valley squad leader. It was very good for me because others would cut grass and I would stand there watching them. Then when an inspector or above comes, I tell them, attention, turn, salute that inspector or above, and then go back and tell them, as you were, as you were. You know, they say ajua, but being a Form 6, I would say as you were, and then they continue cutting grass. We continued that way until, you see, that is May, and we arrived there on May 28th, Saturday. June, Madaraka Day came, so it was a day of rest. And there's a weekend there also. I remember there's a weekend there also where we were given permission to go to Nairobi. The day, Madaraka Day, we were just on standby. We were told you had to be there so that in case people, you know, the president was addressing people Madaraka Day. So in case they needed additional police officers, we could go there. So we just stayed there idle. But there is a weekend there where we were to go to town. And we were told, I started by saying that GSU, we were told that GSU instructors preferred stock theft recruits. So on a Saturday, they told us to go and free walks to town on Saturday. Everybody, and it is only stock theft who are to remain behind. On Sunday, everybody was to be back and stock theft were. And you see, they were less than even a quarter. So we left on Saturday. At the gate, they were just asking, we Kurutu, we ni mtu wapi? We were saying, of course, Salia said is Coast Province. I said Rift Valley. People for Eastern would say whatever. And not even a single stock theft fellow left. That evening, people came back. I didn't come back. I was in town enjoying. Around midnight, I was at the jukebox. Jukebox was the turntable of those days. And I remember there was this Bopol Mansiamina with this song PTA. Yeah, it was a song PTA. PTA was playing. So when PTA was playing, somebody tapped my shoulder, and I turned, and I saw it was one of the corporals, GSU corporals. It is midnight. A recruit, you are not supposed to be in a nightclub. I can say now, or I'll even later learn, he knew that, imagine, for 5 months I've been getting half a salary. So I had is it 2.5 months salary plus the 6th month salary, that is 3.5. So any recruit there who had never had money, now you had, and those days we didn't have bank accounts or we didn't have M-Pesa. So imagine having your 3 months. Okay, let me talk to you. Well, how much do you get now? Imagine having 3 or 4 times the salary that you get in your pocket. So when he touched my shoulder and turned, I came to attention, and he was very embarrassed. He was very embarrassed and disappeared. He was very embarrassed and disappeared. But what I know is that, even what I can say now is, he wanted to show himself there, so that I buy him drinks that night. So the following day, imagine partying. Imagine partying. From Embakasi to town, we arrived around 10. From 10, and you leave the following day at 4. Partying, drinking, everything throughout. Then we went back to Embakasi. Embakasi, everybody, that is when now the instructors came to discover, because they knew the rough estimate of the stock theft people. But around 4 or 5, everybody was coming, and when they were being asked at the gate, we ni mtu ya wapi? Mtu ya stock theft afande. You go. But then they discovered the trick late. I can say that during that time, when we were in Embakasi, waiting to go to Magadi, nothing we did. Apart from being taught this is where ABCD is, geographical tour, also being introduced to various teachers. The commanding officer was called Mr. Bob Morgan. He later, the following year, he founded the BM Security. So Bob Morgan was the commanding officer. He was a senior assistant commissioner of police. His deputy was a senior superintendent, a British called Mr. Smith. Then we had other Africans there. So many. Let me not talk. There are so many. And all of them sharpshooters. So from there, apart from being introduced, this is a class for this is a class. This is where just knowing the whole place, we did nothing apart from cutting grass. And the hurting thing is that we had recruits whom we were employed with, who went to Magadi and came back. They were doing nothing. They were only waiting for their colleagues to come from Magadi, so that they do the final parade. They do their final parade. So we had several from my home area. There is my village mate. Who became a very senior officer. He was called Muganda Kisaka. We had another one. With the due respect, let me not mention his name. Funny thing, last month, after over 40 years, I don't know how he got my number. Last month he rang me. He introduced himself and we talked on phone. But I'll not mention his name because of what I'm going to tell you. Now, Muganda Kisaka and this other person, whom I'm not going to mention his name, sat down with me and gave me a lot of you call them Mwakenya nowadays. They told me how Magadi is, everything and whatever. In those days, is it a week or so? Within a week or so, they managed to tell me everything. I mean, all that one needed to know about Magadi, what to do, ABCD and whatever, and that information assisted me. Mr. Muganda Kisaka, should you watch this, I am eternally grateful. He's my age mate. We were born the same year. We graduated traditionally the same year. We were, although education-wise, I was ahead because the year I was doing my Form 6 is the year he was doing his Form 4. But we were employed on the same day. He was employed in Kakamega, me I was employed in Madare. But we met for the first time when I had completed my course in Kiganjo, pending to go to Magadi. They gave me a lot of briefings, everything to expect and whatever. This other fellow whom I have not mentioned his name, he never went to Magadi. What happened was that he used to steal things. He used to steal things from others. He used to steal things from others. Every time he would pick items from others. Then one day, no, he went to Magadi. Yeah. He went to Magadi, but was removed from Magadi early. There's somebody who had lost his electric iron box. He had lost his electric iron box, and everybody believed that this fellow was the one who had stolen. They told him, "Have you stolen these fellows?" I said, "No." Then he was asked, "Suppose we check your things and find that you have stolen them." Then he said, "If you do that, sack me." And they checked and found. That is where in Luhyaland we say mtu amerogwa. Because the last time they even asked him, supposing we find it with you, he said, sack me. And it was found. And at that time when we came from Kiganjo, a letter had been sent to police headquarters recommending his sacking. Recommending his sacking. Now, I've just remembered something. Sacking a recruit in GSU was harder than sacking a coastman in Kiganjo. A coastman is somebody, a serving police officer who has come for any courses in junior training wing. In Kiganjo, you are found with a girl, a recruit girl. Whether you are seducing or not, but you are found with a recruit girl, you go home. You go home. A serving police officer married with wife and kids, maybe going for a traffic course, maybe going for an investigation course, maybe going for a promotion course to be a corporal, found dating a girl, a recruit girl, goes home. I mean, those days, I don't know about today. But a recruit in GSU has been found stealing from other boxes. The letter has to be written by GSU Training School. It goes to Ruaraka GSU headquarters. From Ruaraka GSU headquarters, it goes to Kenya Police headquarters. Kenya Police headquarters sacks him, gives the letter to Ruaraka. Ruaraka takes that letter to so that is why this fellow was awaiting. He was awaiting sacking. He had been recruited. I mean, he was waiting for sacking because of stealing that thing, that iron box. Then the day we went to the way we went to Magadi, I can't really recall the day that it was, but I think it was on a Friday, or it was on a Friday or a Saturday. The lorries came from Ruaraka, GSU headquarters. Those lorries took us. They took us to Magadi. These lorries took us to Magadi. And upon arrival Magadi, is that the GSU recruits were now coming, were to board those lorries to go to Embakasi. We traveled well. Upon arrival, you have the heavy police box, you have your personal box, you have the gun, and we saw these recruits who are to go back, now the GSU people. They were begging us that things were so heavy, tafadhali assist me, let me assist you by carrying the gun for you so that you. I saw the way they were urging us. I became very suspicious. Why are they not assisting us in the heavy things? Why are they insisting on guns? So I decided not to give them guns. One or two of our police officers gave them guns. They even told them, can you assist us even carry the boxes? They assisted them carrying the boxes and guns and whatever. But once they alighted and started, when you have traveled, the first thing you do is you count the things. You left your place with three things. Now you count to see if there are two, then you ask yourself which one is missing. As somebody was trying to account for his things, he found that the person who had assisted him with a gun was nowhere to be seen. They went straight to the armory and gave out those guns. They went to the armory and gave out those guns. Now, if you had given out your gun in the GSU, it's like in the Kiganjo, we used to actually, it was just you give somebody your gun, you come back and what. But in GSU, you don't give anybody your gun. It is only the armorer, you give the gun and whatever. Even your best friend, you cannot give out the gun. So those fellows were given a ceremonial, they were received ceremoniously because they had given out their guns. And as we alighted, there was this wind wool. Now, when this wind wool was going on, even it is now here, I can see it. That wind wool in Kikuyu is called Gomashia Aka. In Kimasai, it is called Oloikur. And in Kisomali, it is called Habasweina. That is why we have a town called Habaswein. That is why we called a city called Nakuru. So there was that windwood, and the GSU has said, bado, hiyo ni warm up, sijui nini. That is when we went and we were shown our tents and we were received. My viewers, my subscribers, that is the first day we arrived in GSU. I placed it into three parts. Placed it day 1A when we arrived at Ruaraka, and then later on that day in Embakasi. I've also talked on how we were received in Embakasi. Remember, we were to train in Embakasi for 6 weeks. The initial thing was for us to be trained for 6 weeks, but we ended up it being extended because of the tension. You remember those are the days when Jonjo was being called Musaliti. So we were being placed there as standby should there be need for. And you see, 6 weeks with the GSU is more strenuous than 6 months in Kiganjo. Remember in Kiganjo, yes, Kiganjo can be called a paramilitary course. I can agree. But you see in Kiganjo, you go there, there is a time when you are being taught how to fill in the OB, occurrence book. You are taught in Kiganjo how to fill in the cell entry. You are taught in Kiganjo how to handle prisoners in the cells. In Kiganjo, you are taught how to open a file and how you will go to court and give evidence, how you'll do whatever. But in GSU, that is paramilitary day and night. If I had a say, I would prefer that everybody who goes to any discipline services, National Police Service, Kenya Wildlife Service, Kenya Forest Services, they go through NYS. NYS is a tougher training than Kiganjo. NYS is more like GSU than Kiganjo. And when I mentioned Mount Wambua in Magadi, people who have been to NYS talked of Mount Kioko. My viewers, we come to the end of today's long story about the first day in GSU. Imagine almost spending a day, almost spending an hour talking about my first day in GSU. It is quite memorable. Thank you.